Well, I'm going to probably angry a lot of people here, and I'm going to explain to my fellow and amazing and wonderful Linux nerds why a lot of people are moving from Linux to Apple or to macOS. I have this joke that I say, and it's kind of true. I call it the life cycle of a Linux user. You start out on Windows, you get disfranchised, or most people get angry or something about Windows, or they just want to, for some reason, cut off the shackles of the Windows system and try something new. They can't afford an Apple product, so the next best thing is Linux, because it's one of the thirdly most supported OSs in the world from software and hardware viewpoint. So they go over to Linux and they try it out, they love it, they get entrenched into it, they soak up all the things they can soak up from Linux and the politics and shit like that. Then about the 3 to 5 year lifespan, they either dual boot with Windows again, they move 100% to Windows, or they go over to Mac. And you see Mac OS becoming more and more popular for those kind of people, because a lot of them are also developers and stuff like that, or love to develop, and Mac OS is way better than Windows from a development standpoint, unless you're doing C#. If you're doing C# or Microsoft technology, stay on Windows. Why is it that you see a lot of people, I don't have statistic on it, but anecdotal evidence from what we hear and see, a lot of people go from Linux to Mac OS. It's true. Are there more people going from Linux to Windows or back to Windows? Probably. But there's a big chunk of those people that stop using Linux, they end up on macOS. So why are they doing that? And it's again something that I've said a long time, is that macOS give people the best of two worlds. You get the best from the Windows world and the best from the Unix world. So what do I mean by the best from the Unix world or the Linux world? You get the terminal, you get the Unix background that is in macOS. And you can do not everything the same as you can do under Linux, but like 60 to 80% of the same shit you can do in the back end on macOS. I'm not talking about customizing the desktop. Nobody really gives a fuck about customizing the desktop. But you can go in and you can fiddle around with config files till your fucking penises falls off in macOS. Heck, you can even do it in Windows if you're doing it in registry and stuff like that. If you want to run a lot of open source software, we have Homebrew here, why I took it up here. That's basically a gateway, a really nerdy gateway into run almost any open source and Linux program that you can dream of. If it's on Linux and it's popular, it's probably in here. As much as you can nerd out on Windows, it still don't have that Unix feel. It still don't have that nerdiness feel from a Linux lover and Unix lover viewpoint. macOS do. macOS have all the right things that heck, most commands you can fucking copy paste from Linux into macOS, because they're somewhat POSIX compatible to higher and lesser degree depending on what systems you're using. So it takes all of that nerd, all of that Linux, all of the good things you like about Linux. You can do most of them under macOS, but not under Windows. Or under Windows, you have to do a little bit more to open up the app, point intended, to get in and mess with the backend, because Windows protect a little bit more from a lot of the nerdy stuff. macOS look like it does, but if you know what you're doing, you can really tingle that Apple and that macOS system really, really hard. You can do that with any operating system if you know what you're doing. When people say they can't customize and tweak Windows and macOS, it tells me one thing, that they have no clue how to use that operating system in that manner then. Because you can, and people do it professionally all the fucking time. macOS feel a lot more like Unix and Windows, Unix and Linux than Windows does, and alone that is a good talking point for a lot of people. They like that philosophy of what's going on with Linux and Unix, and that's what you get within macOS. That's the good part from the Unix side. What about the good part on the Windows side? I'm just using Adobe Photoshop here as an example. Well, we hear this a lot from the Linux crowd. If only this software supported Linux, it would be taking over Windows in like a fortnight or something like that. You go to sleep and you wank out in the bed and you wake up and Linux is the most popular system on earth. You get that with macOS. 99% of the software things that the Linux users wish Linux had natively support of macOS does. So you can run your Photoshops, your AutoCADs, and all of those things that people may need for work or any other thing, or they just prefer them over the alternative. macOS give that. So you're getting all the good stuff from the Linux and Unix side and all the nerdiness from that. And you're getting the support from the majority of popular software out there that you could dream of, that we still have to emulate or hack and whatnot to get to work under Linux. Here you just download it and install it. Yes, I know Mac comes with a premium, but if you save up, it's just a matter of saving up. A lot of people can save up money. It's just a matter how much time it takes. We get the bonuses, we get the bonuses from the Linux side without the hassle of running Linux. We get the the nerdiness side I was talking about. And we get the software compatibility that we're yelling and screaming about, if only, if only, if only. We get that with macOS. But there's something more that we're also getting with macOS that is a good side from the Windows world. And again, I'm just using Elgato here as an example. You get natively support and natively software support for that hardware. So Elgato is one of those products that have natively supported software for macOS. This is a Logitech headset. I use a Logitech mouse. They have a native client for macOS. There's a lot of hardware that have natively support for macOS. Again, one of the things that the Linux world say, if only we had that. So you're getting the greatness about Linux, most of the greatness for Linux. And you're getting all of the, if only we had this under Linux, you're also getting that without the hassle that is Windows UI, Windows backend, Microsoft orientations about doing things, the Microsoft way of making a fucking technology and then getting almost the documentation right and then scrapping it for new technology and forgetting that documentation and working on something new documentation. And then, Microsoft and documentation like a fucking, it's like fire and water, or oil and water, I think is the right wording here. So you're getting, again, the good parts from Windows, the software support and the hardware support. You're getting the good parts of Linux, the tinkerness, the Unix feel, the config fileness aspect of it, the access to nerdy programs and open source programs in a nerdy way and stuff like that. And you combine all of that in a highly expensive package, I will say. But again, you're combining that into some will say, also aesthetically pleasing OS. I am kind of like, I like some aspect of it and dislike some aspect of it from a virtual UI standpoint. Another way of looking at it is, I say this a lot to my Linux friends, mostly just to anger them, but I kind of also believe it a little bit, is that macOS is what Linux wished they were. If you take away Apple and the control Apple has of it and stuff, we should just looking at macOS as an individual, look at it as a Linux distribution that is so unique that a lot of things only work on that Linux distribution. That would be the Linux distribution every other Linux distribution wanted it to be. A lot of Linux distributions, Linux in general, wish they could be Mac, or not Mac, but Apple. macOS. Yeah, macOS. Sorry, I'm confused today. Almost every Linux distribution wish they could be macOS. They wish they could keep the nerdiness that is Linux, but also have the support from massive software vendors and hardware vendors and stuff like that, aka everything macOS have. The only thing they don't want is the premium price tag for the hardware and the control of Apple. And I do get that. I understand that 1000%. Bye-bye.